Hello everyone, welcome to my webinar on Key 15, the Deceiver, also known as the Devil, and Key 16, the Tower. Let's begin. So our first sheet is on Key 15, the Deceiver, and in most decks this particular card is called the Devil card. Smoldering fire and bondage appear to be his trademark. This creature has the horns of a goat, wings of a bat, arms and hands of a man, legs and feet of an eagle. He has a five-pointed star crowning his head, but it's upside down. His eyes are flaming red. And I would suggest this is not someone you want to run into in a dark alley. Just at a glance, this key may remind us of Key 6, the Lovers. There, Archangel Raphael held a very supportive role with a happy man and woman. Here, things don't look so good for the couple. So what's really going on? Well, if you look at his small white beard, you'll get the idea. The mystery of who he represents is given away by this small white beard. He also wears the symbol of Mercury on his navel. What does this tell us? He is none other than the life force. He is the one force as it operates apart from human knowledge and human direction. What does this mean? Here we have the condition that manifests as bondage is actually an illusion. This is a wrong construction put upon the principle of limitation. Thus, the principle of limitation takes on the appearance of the devil, but it's an appearance. I like this card. Sinning and nasty fear-based stuff. Religions, politics, and Hollywood have made great profits and gained large numbers of followers from this image of the devil. Their marketing strategy includes such terms as sinning, you're a sinner, going to the devil, and/or going to hell, and other nasty fear-based stuff. But we occultists know that what's really going on. Previously in the keys, we spoke of sinning as missing the mark. We gave the example of an archer who, as a small boy, was given a bow and arrow. After much practice and missing the mark on most occasions, everyone stayed out of range, he finally got the hang of it. Eventually, he was able to hit the mark every time, and then even with his eyes closed. We all start out not knowing very much. But with study and practice, we, too, will move towards mastery. Here we have the Hebrew letter Ayin. So we will begin the exploration of this card with this letter. And it also means O. And you can see in the lower right-hand corner the letter O. It means eye and fountain. So you see above it, there's a little eye. It signifies also the external, superficial appearance of things. The all-seeing eye has been a symbol of deity in all parts of the world for ages past. This tells us that this key is connected to certain aspects of the one power that theologians call God. Add to this the ideas related to fountain. This has to do with occult doctrines concerning God as the fountain of manifestation or source of creation. The symbolism of the eye. Eye is the organ of sight, and as such, it is a most important sense tool. In symbology, it is used to represent all sensation. This is very similar to the lion, the king of beasts, as the representative of all subhuman modes of life expression. Subhuman meaning everything below being a human being. Animals, vegetables, minerals. The sense of sight is also a source of manifold illusions and deceptions. Vision is limited by the circle of the horizon. Through the eye, we see appearances only. The eye represents the limitations of the visible. The bondage of ignorance results from the acceptance of these limitations. Appearances as being all that there is. The eye deceives us only if we let it. And if you look at the picture on the left, the little dog walking across the pool of water, it's actually upside down. But you wouldn't know it because the clouds are behind the dog, but they're not included in the lower part of this picture. I think it's a cool picture. Here we have the deceiver. The term devil, derived from the Greek diabolos, meaning a slanderer. In the New Testament, the devil is called the father of lies. This deceiver represents the fundamental error from which all falsehoods derive, the error of supposing that a reality called matter is opposed to another reality termed spirit. The error that the only reality is matter, that all man designates by the word spirit is no more than an intellectual abstraction. In Sanskrit, matter is called Maya, which means illusion. In the Western mind, we tend to accept the world of appearances as the only reality. To the philosophers of the East, the phenomenal world is unreal, ever-shifting appearances. The ageless wisdom reconciles these two points of view by saying that the term reality applies to both worlds. Something to think about. The outer world may be Maya or illusion in one sense of that term. What we call matter is actually the appearance of what we term spirit. The spirit makes itself manifest in the field of name and form. We do not see how it is possible to separate the reality of the appearance from the reality of the one identity that is making the appearance. According to the ageless wisdom, the error consists precisely in attempting to establish such a separation between appearance and what we may call the appearer. The seeming two are really one, and they are not in opposition to each other. Iron as a fountain, meaning fountain. It is a spring of flowing water. It nourishes the growth of plants. It makes places fertile. An oasis from on high appears to be an eye in the face of the desert. From a 16th century magical manuscript, Eliphas Levi quotes that among the powers and privileges of the adept, those connected with the letter iron are, quote, to force nature to make him free at his pleasure, unquote. We will give you the rest of that quote a little further along. But remember, those powers and privileges connected with the letter iron, the I, are to force nature to make him free at his pleasure. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 4, verse 1, then Jesus was led up into the wilderness by the Spirit to be tempted by the devil. This is an important clue to the whole mystery of Key 15. Note, the Spirit did the leading for the specific purpose of testing Jesus by temptation. There he is on the left, being tempted. So what does this all mean? Appearances that deceive us are necessary to the manifestation of the life power, necessary to attain our full stature as human beings. necessary that we are in a position, quote, to force nature to make us free at our pleasure, unquote. We must be subjected to tests and trials of our faith. These trials are imposed on us by appearances. The whole book of Job concerns this, as do the four Gospels. So you'll notice I put Job 23:10-11. He knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold. My feet have closely followed his steps. I have kept to his way without turning aside. The mystery of evil is no mystery to those who have met and passed the trials of faith. It is at that point that the experience of consciousness of evil disappears. So how can there still be all the economic, political, and social evils of the present day? How can this fine theory erase all that? The way of life that leads to realization of man's true place in the scheme of things. It does more than banish consciousness of evil. It brings with it the power to transmute all semblances of evil into manifestations of positive good. The magical manuscript previously quoted continues, quote, "The wise man rules the elements, stills the tempests, cures the diseased by his touch, and raises the dead. The initiates know, and as for others, whether they deride, doubt, or believe, whether they threaten or fear, what matters it to science or to us?" Until we experience the higher order of knowing, we may have difficulty with the various appearances of evil. Logic forces us to attribute the manifestation of the visible universe to a power which is essentially good, a power that is wholly wise. There you see, remember the little white beard on the devil. It follows that even if appearances are deceiving, appearance itself is necessary for the perfect manifestation of the life power. Let's explore the key further to see how this is expressed. The zodiacal sign Capricorn is attributed to key 15. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, the planet of limitation and restriction. In Capricorn, Mars is exalted, or has its highest field of expression. And remember, the Mars force starts at the base of the Kundalini. We see in key 15 a symbolic presentation of a power which both binds and liberates. In its binding aspect, it creates a form. All forms have definite limitations. All release of energy, as we discussed in key 13, transition, or the death key, requires the dissolution of a form. In Capricorn, these opposite aspects of reality are brought together. Form necessitates limitation. In our experience, limitation is bondage. Yet the very limitations that bug us may become the spurs to action that release us. This is clearly indicated by the first column of keys in the tarot tableau, which I'll remind you is when the keys are placed in 3 rows of 7 cards each, and at the very top is the Fool card. So in the first column, the exercise of concentration, which is key 1, the Magician, puts into operation the law of suggestion, which is key 8, strength. If you remember, that is a young woman holding the mouth of a lion, a red lion, also with a background of yellow to the card. And this results in a renewal of consciousness that releases us from bondage, which is key 15, the deceiver. And in the future, I will be doing these 7 stages of consciousness for each column of the tarot tableau. We will proceed on to that once we finish going over the initial review of the cards. Mirth is the function of consciousness attributed by the Kabbalists to the letter Ayin. Laughter is called by perception of the incongruous. I can personally totally relate to this when I'm in an advanced yoga class. The yoga teacher is demonstrating the final peak pose that we're about to do. A ripple of laughter from the attendees is not unheard of at this point. Usually they look at each other and go, "We're going to do that?" And on the left is actually a picture of my yoga instructor, my favorite one. And she's doing something she demonstrated in a class I attended, and I got somewhat part of it, but I laughed a lot. So it is but a step from this to the truth that joy results from the perception of the incongruity between the appearance of limitation and the truth that man is the immediate agent of the one identity. All that power, force, and energy flows through you into creation, to create creation. You and me and I and all of us are the immediate agent of the one identity. So looking in the mirror today, you might go, "You gotta be kidding." But that's the way it is. So laughter purifies the subconscious mind. Laughter dissolves mental complexes and conflicts. Yeah. Experimental verification of this truth brings an experience of the most intense bliss. The number 15 is the number of IH, or Yah, the divine name especially ascribed to wisdom. The background of key 15 is black, color of darkness, color of ignorance, of limitation, color of what is hidden or occult. And just remember, the term occult just means hidden. It's not some fancy la 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 thing. It just means hidden, which is appearances hide it. That's all. Suggesting ignorance. Black suggests ignorance is the underlying cause of bondage. His wings are bat's wings, signifying the powers of darkness, because bats have the ability to fly in the dark. He has the ears of a donkey to suggest the obstinacy and stubbornness of materialism. As you've heard many people say, "Well, I can't see it, so it's not real." Okay. You just need to raise up your sense of sight to a little higher vibration. His body is thick-set and an earthen color to represent the earthy quality of the sign Capricorn. The goat's horns on his head and his face refer to Capricorn. The symbol for Capricorn is in the lower right-hand corner of the key. Between this figure's horns, like a crown, is a white inverted pentagram. This is a key to the whole meaning of the figure. For the pentagram is the symbol of man. An inverted pentagram suggests the reversal of true understanding of man's place in the cosmos. Man has the power to control everything below him in the scale of creation. The mistaken estimate of man's powers and possibilities is all that keeps anyone in bondage. The deceiver's uplifted right hand has all of its fingers open. The opposite of the teacher, key 5, also known as the Hierophant. where he has a couple of his fingers closed of his right hand. The deceiver suggests by this that all you see is all there is. On the palm of his right hand is the symbol for the planet Saturn. This signifies limitation, restriction, and ignorance. In his left hand is a torch, burning wastefully, giving little light. The torch is a phallic symbol, representing the transmission of life from generation to generation. It represents Mars, exalted in Capricorn. This is the fiery torch of revolution. Based on materialistic interpretations of experience, it is the torch of terrorism, and anarchy. Remember that we have all of our senses, sight, taste, hearing, smell, touch, through our vehicles, through our bodies. But we also have them without our bodies. But we just need to develop them. And that's what's happening here. And this card and the next card is getting you to realize that you, one, can develop them, and two, use them so that you can see that there is no separation between the material and spiritual world. There is a whole world out there that many people have never seen until they do this. And there's a way to do it. And it's taught in the tarot. Over this figure's navel is the symbol for Mercury. This refers to the activity at work in the subtle processes of digestion and assimilation. These processes, under the influence of Mercury, key 1, the magician, in the sign Virgo, Virgo rules the upper intestines, are brought under control in the work of practical occultism. So I'll repeat that these processes of digestion and assimilation, under the influence of Mercury in the sign of Virgo, are brought under control in the work of practical occultism. That work of digestion and assimilation is a combination of mental processes, indicated by the yellow upper half of the Mercury symbol, and bodily responses or reactions, represented by the red cross, forming the lower half of the same symbol. We discussed this in depth in key 9, the Hermit. Okay, and the Hermit card is directly over the Tower card in the Tarot tableau. So there's an influence there, and we will get to that on the next card in this session. His claws are those of an eagle, the bird corresponding to the sign Scorpio. This indicates the materialization and misuse of the reproductive power, its debasement in the service of sensuality. So we do need to get a handle on regeneration, but we have to understand we need to raise it up, because without raising it up, it's our foundation. In yoga, this is what we call the core of our body, that we cannot attain any balanced postures without strengthening our core. And our core in the human body is in the Mars center, at the base of the Kundalini. So once you get that in a way of regeneration of your whole body, then the rest will start to be under your control. He sits on a half-cube pedestal. Since a cube represents that which was and is and shall be, a half-cube symbolizes half knowledge of that reality, only the visible, sensory side of existence. You're only getting half if you're just looking through your eyes. To this half-cube are chained 2 figures. They represent the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Their horns, hoofs, and tails show that they are reasoning that their reasoning comes from surface appearances. Their human consciousness has become bestialized, that of the beast. The female figure has a tail with a bunch of grapes. Since a person is known by their fruits, hers are of an animal nature. They are chained to the cube, but may free themselves at any time. Their bondage is imaginary. So this is taking the feminine aspect and the masculine aspect and tying them to only the world of appearance. The monstrous figure in key 15 is a symbol of man's ignorance, of the true nature of reality, more especially of man's ignorance concerning his own place in the scheme of things. We need to take the responsibility of who we are. We need to take this on. We need to take that responsibility and get on with the things we're supposed to be doing on the planet Earth. That ignorance is the real deceiver. It may be overcome. Those who set their feet upon the ancient way of liberation learn how to banish the deceiver and his works. I find the tarot really helpful with this. And if you review at some point many of the prior keys to this card, after you see these cards, it's always best to go back to the beginning and just read through on my blog the cards. Conscious bondage. There are 7 stages of spiritual unfoldment. This key represents the first stage, that of conscious bondage. You are aware you're in bondage. That's a good thing. The deceiver represents the false conceptions, that man is bound by material conditions, the false notion that he is a slave to necessity, the false notion he is a sport of chance. The forces which appear to be our adversaries are always ready to serve us. The deceiver is sensation divorced by ignorance from understanding. We need to understand our essential freedom and take account of the hidden side of existence, the other half of the cube. So we're going to move on to the next key. It's called the Tower, key 16. Rather dramatic, I would say. So what's happening in this card? The primary attribute of the previous key 15 is bondage, self-inflicted bondage. How do we remove the chains that bind us? As we explore key 16, the Tower, we begin to realize that its function is spiritual awakening. Here we find the 2 chained characters of the previous key falling upside down from a tower. Not looking good for them. The male represents the conscious mind, and the female the subconscious mind. So what is being played out here? And where does the lightning come from? This key 16 represents the 2nd stage of spiritual unfoldment. And along the lower row of cards, also known as keys, are the 7 stages. So this is the tarot tableau, the 3rd row, the bottom row, are called the 7 stages of spiritual unfoldment. Here we are awakening from the dream of sense, from the nightmare of bondage. All that we see is not all that there is. Key 15 made us aware of the nature of our bondage. Key 15 provided us with a perception that our bondage is only a dream. But this is a perception. We need to get going on having the experience of it. Key 16 is a picture of destruction. It is important to note that the source of the destructive power is the sun. Its disintegrating force comes forth as a flash of lightning. Our first awakening. I love this picture of the little chick. We're referring to a flash from superconsciousness. This constitutes our first awakening, the first time, and it's a powerful first time. It is the first moment of clear vision, and this can happen at any time in your life. It is the turning point for each person. You are never quite the same as you were before. It is something like the hatching of a chick. Once the shell is broken, the chick can never return to the egg. It has entered a new phase of existence. Another life opens before it. So it is with man. At the moment of sudden illumination, pictured in Key 16, he receives an initiation. From then on, he belongs to a new order of creatures. With a little observation, you will find that destruction is the foundation of existence. Our entire lives are spent in the disintegration of forms. For the sake of building up other forms, power is released by disintegration. The food we eat, the clothes we wear, the cars we ride in, all are in the process of destruction from the very moment we put them into use. In the act of destruction lies all the utility that can be extracted from any of these. In the experience of spiritual unfoldment, awakening is distinctly a destructive process. I see people sitting in meditation and yoga at the end of the class, and they're all, oh, you know, I'm going to be pure and everything. They have no idea what they're going to step into once they get it, that they can't go back. It's great, but you then open a whole other world you have to learn all about. You don't just sit there and go, oh, I'm in the light, I'm all perfect. No, there's a whole lot to learn. One of the great things about the tarot cards is they have all of the instruction you need. All the customary wrong thinking and wrong acting must go. You have to start using discrimination. Oh my. The false sense of personal will, of personal autonomy, the false sense of personal self-action, all must be destroyed. This is not a comfortable process. When one is forced to recognize the truth, that some of his most cherished beliefs are false, readjustment is not easy. Yet the wise in every age have testified this destruction is essentially a gathering of materials for a grander structure. The first chapter of the Gospel of St. John says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. That which has been made was life in Him, and the life was the light of men." You have learned that this power is the source of the forces used in reproduction, integration, and creation. Now know that from it springs also the forces manifest in the opposite of these. The practical occultist has to learn that in order to reach any goal he may have set for himself, first he must break down the conditions in which he finds himself when he formulates his desire. Let me repeat that, because that is really, you really have to get your mind around that. In order to reach any goal he may have set for himself, first he must break down the conditions in which he finds himself when he formulates his desire. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't stay where you are create a desire to be someplace else, and still try and be where you are. Ain't gonna happen. Doesn't work. To release these chains that bind us, we must learn how to break them. The time to begin this process is now, not some vague time in the future. You've already made a good start. You are aware of your limitations. You're making an effort to transcend them. Your first step is to apply in your daily life the principles represented by the tarot keys, to build these principles into the structure of your own being. Remember, the structure of your own being is run by your subconscious mind. It is on automatic pilot. The feminine principle is your form. In the yoga classes that I attend, this is demonstrated. There is always the final pose called Shavasana, or corpse pose. You lie on your back and you are still. You allow your mind to be still. Thus, your body absorbs the class. When you arise to leave, your body is a new structure. It can be nothing less. The subconscious mind runs our bodies at the direction of our conscious mind. After you've been through a full day of trials and tribulations, it's a very good thing to sit very quietly and allow your body to absorb what you've learned. Because if it doesn't become part of your body, you get to do it all again the next day. You need to allow yourself this. This is where you begin to understand how the East meets the West, that the occult teachings of the West are the same as those as the yoga teachings in the East. The number 16. Start with the basics. The number 16 shows you the way. The principle essential to the work, as represented by key 6, the lovers, is right discrimination. Apply this principle through acts of concentration, as demonstrated by key 1, the magician. Concentration is the placing of your attention on an object. Alive objects, such as plants or animals, inanimate objects. This is so that the object of your concentration may reveal itself to you. You just stare at it. There's a great concentration exercise called the orange exercise, where you just stare at the orange and go into it slowly. You look at the surface, then you go in. And there's, I will put this up on my blog so that you understand, and then anytime your mind wanders, you have to go back to the beginning. At a certain point, you can go through the whole exercise and your mind will never wander. Then meditation will be open to you. So let it speak to you in person, these objects. Don't Google it to figure it out. Don't look it up in a book. You need to have the objects around you speak to you. They will reveal themselves to you. You will find that each day's experience brings you some measure of the awakening pictured here in key 16. Superficial observation will not suffice. You need to stop and look and be quiet. You must give attention to the meaning of your thoughts, your desires, and your actions. You must do this the same way as you would when you place your attention on an object. Thus you apply the principle of limitation to overcome limitation. You really have to think about that. As you become proficient in concentration, you will rarely place yourself in embarrassing situations by rash and unconsidered action. You'll think before you act. Then you'll act wisely. I'm not even talking about meditation here. I'm just talking about becoming proficient in concentration. The planet Mars is related to key 16 through the Hebrew letter P, the letter of this key. As you can see in the lower right-hand corner, there it is. In esoteric or outer astrology, Mars is the planet of war and rash action. Yet it is the driving force behind all successful activity. The way the Mars force manifests in us depends on whether we control it and make use of its driving power, or whether we permit it to control us, creating rash and foolish activity. The Mars force is the driving energy of desire force. Control of desire is not repression. No man without powerful desires and emotions ever attains to the heights of mastery. The repression of the Mars force causes havoc and terrific destruction. So how does this work? What do we need to do to find the balance necessary to control and manifest our desires? The channels through which the desire force finds expression in us are normally under our conscious control. This is a normal way. This is our tool. We don't have to go out and look for it. It is perfectly natural to effect this control. This is already part of our nature. And I'm reverting back to, it's a skill, you have it, and it will naturally come to you if you work on your concentration skills. Key 1, the magician, shows how, and note that he wears a red cloak, the color indicating the Mars force. Formulate your desires using intelligent discrimination, and then bring them into manifestation by concentration. Intelligent discrimination is one where you don't sit around and watch things that are destructive to your plans for your life in the future. What would you want to have in your body? What you watch and listen to, the music, movies, conversation, just all this stuff going through your mind, you have to learn to discriminate what works for you and what doesn't, and then don't subject your body to it, because your subconscious mind will take it all and throw it into your body, and now you live with it. Make your mental images of the desired results sharp and clear, so that subconsciousness will receive definite impressions. The activity of the dynamic Mars force will make your dreams come true. There is a tradition that this key refers to the fall of the Tower of Babel. Human speech is said to have become a confusion of tongues. The Hebrew letter Peh means the mouth as the organ of speech. It therefore symbolizes power of utterance. The letter even looks like it has a small tongue. The old Bible story indicates that it is a mistaken use of language to try to reach heaven by means of a structure of words. The correct use of language is to control the forces of nature by making words the tools of organized thought. It's why we have services and certain combinations of words with which to create, so we can practice this. Let's see how Key 16 supports these principles in symbology and colors. The gray stone tower sits at the top of a mountain. The mountain is the same earthy color as the Deceiver in the previous key. The tower consists of 22 layers of man-made brick. The Hebrew alphabet has 22 letters. Thus, it represents a structure of human speech. In some earlier decks, this key was called the House of God. Gray is the color of wisdom. So here you have a house of God whose foundation is on the earth. The earthy deceiver intimates that you see with your senses, and that's all there is. The tower is a structure based on human error and ignorance. On the other hand, we see 22 flaming yods suspended in the air. The yods are used to stand for the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Every Hebrew letter is said to be an aspect of the yod. 10 are on one side of the tower and 12 are on the other. The 10 represent the tree of life. The 12 represent the signs of the zodiac. Thus we have represented the sum total of the cosmic forces. Represented are the elements, fire, air, earth, and water, of the creative word on the tree of life. Represented as well are the elements entering into the consciousness of human personality, the 12 aspects of personality through the zodiac. By hanging the yods in space, Key 16 is stating none of these forces has a physical foundation. This is the reverse of the rocky foundation of the tower. The 10 yods represent the tree of life. The average person thinks of his life as having a physical basis. He supposes it to be sustained by food, air, water, and various physical forces of his environment. Ageless Wisdom says just the opposite. Ageless Wisdom declares that instead of life being supported by the conditions of the physical plane, these conditions are supported by life. It is true that certain definite physical conditions must exist in order that the functions of human personality may be exercised here on Earth. It is not true that these conditions either cause or support those functions. Ageless Wisdom holds causation to be vital rather than physical. In this day, this is fashionable. Neither was the conception that the earth was round in the days of Columbus. It is demonstrably true. It is not any less true because relatively few people are at present able to make the demonstration. The lightning flash of true perception always makes itself felt in the physical body. There must be a period of physical adjustment. Remember the Shavasana, the last pose in the yoga class. So there must be a period of physical adjustment before our bodies can be vehicles for the expression of the higher levels of consciousness. The flash comes from a solar disk. This shows that although it is the destructive agent, it is a phase of the life power. The disk is in the same corner of the key as that of the sun in key 1 of the Fool from the east. The source of the flash is the lamp of key 9, the Hermit. And that's a key that's directly above the tower key. The zigzag form of the flash. This is a reminder of the tree of life. The flash replicates the movement of the life power among the 10 aspects on that diagram. And we'll go back and look at the diagram. So the movement starts at the crown. You see 2 is on the right, 3 is to the left, 4 goes to the right, 5 is to the left. You go through 6 to 7, back to the left, 8, then it goes to 9, and then it drops down to 10. And there it is. Back and forth, and then wacko, right into the earth, because number 10 is the earthly existence, fire, air, earth, and water. The crown is a symbol of willpower. The Hebrew noun kether, meaning crown, is a synonym for will. The crown here is a false crown of material attainment. Mankind has come a long way and attained considerable success from an earthly standpoint. The Tower of Babel attempted to storm heaven's gate. They built an earthly structure up to a far-off God. Man should instead be preparing the temple of his own vehicle. In this way, it becomes fit to hold the indwelling God already there. The flash of perception. Right knowledge begins with a flash of perception. This right knowledge makes us realize No detail of our personal experience can be separated from the total expression of the life power's activity. However brief this flash of realization may be, it overthrows the notion of separate personal will. It disrupts mental structures based on error, that we are living our lives in perpetual antagonism to the universe, that we are living our lives in antagonism to the lives of our neighbors. This lie is behind every murder. The following figures represent the two modes of personal consciousness. The flash of inspiration upsets all of our former conceptions of the nature of personal consciousness. It reverses our way of thinking. In key 16, the figures are clothed compared to the figures in key 15. Here they hide their true nature from each other, while man remains in a state of ignorant separateness. The man wears both red and blue. This shows a mixture of self-conscious and subconscious activities. The woman is shod with red but wears a blue robe. She is crowned with a crown similar to that of the high priestess. In false knowledge, subconscious motives are permitted to dominate the personality. Thus, people excuse themselves for unintelligent action by saying, quote, "I can't help it. That's the way I feel," unquote. Here we have domination of personality by emotion. It is overcome by right knowledge. Right knowledge also overcomes the concealment and division between all self-consciousness and subconsciousness. Remember, we're almost done. Remember that a fundamental activity of the Mars force in human personality is the stimulation of desire. Most of us are beset by a veritable mob of miscellaneous desires. Many of them are unimportant, weak, and ephemeral. An enlightened being is one of comparatively few desires. They are deep, powerful, and one-pointed. Such a person shoots straight for his mark. Nothing is permitted to turn him aside from his purpose. His thoughts dwell upon it. His activity is directed by its attainment. Our last slide is, look within, you've got help. Select your most important desire. Do not allow less important ones to interfere with it. Yielding to the influence of small desires dissipates energy. Though easy to describe, this practice is difficult. But keep in mind, desire control is the basis of mastery. You can make it easier through right discrimination. Then your subconscious mind will happily bring to you all that you need. Thank you for attending my webinar on Key 15, the Deceiver, and Key 16, the Tower. Please go to my blog on gatesoflight.wordpress.com for more information about the symbols and colors of the keys. I will also be posting a recording of this webinar on my blog. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm just in the process of unmuting people so that you may speak. There you go.
I do know it was a lot of information, so sorry about that.
Don't be sorry, it's fabulous.
And
it's just overwhelming.
Any questions?
I have a question, if I may.
Yes.
I wanted to get I could look this up, but I wanted to get your take on, there's a reference to astrological sense that Mars is exalted in Capricorn, and not being never really have studied astrology deep and don't really understand the sense of exalted.
Hold the highest importance. So in the personality represented by the sign Capricorn, the Mars force, which is is exalted, means that it's it's the most important um, movement of that sign. So they're very strongly related. And Capricorn has both binding and releasing energy. So that means the Mars force, which is located in the groin area, which is the base of the Kundalini, can be the regenerative aspect or it can be the destructive aspect. So the fact that it's related to Capricorn, which does both. And it's interesting to note that all of the great avatars came out of Capricorn into physical vehicles. So the Mars force at regeneration means you regenerate your body, so you regenerate your mind. But if you keep it as just an implement of sex, then it smolders and destroys you, and you become old and wrinkled and die, as opposed to regenerating your entire body by using that same force. So that's exaltation of Mars and Capricorn.
And is that just synonymous with, because usually you hear people say that Mars rules Capricorn.
It would be synonymous with that.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
It would
I
be the
thought
same.
that was
Rules and exalted, yeah. What happens is we have to understand that the 12 astrological signs have to do with personality manifestations. There's sort of a limited view that from most people that, oh, I'm going to be illumined or self-realized, and then I'm just going to sit there. But the thing is, we need to understand all these aspects. The Tree of Life has these 10 aspects. One of the things created by it was, it's like it's very akin to myself, who is a bookkeeper. It has partitioned things. I'm not sure what that is.
I'm not either.
And that's me getting a Skype call that I just turned off.
So what you're finding is that once you get to a certain point, you have to start understanding how to make things work, and that's the occult practice. There's the mysteries, mysticism, and occultism. And occult just means getting to learn to use your tools. If you were a carpenter, you would pick up a hammer and a nail and various tools, and you would have a master carpenter teach you how to use them. So you've taken the first step, but there's much more. The ancients, the last 2,000 to 4,000 years, used the symbology of metals, and the metals also mean the various chakra centers. And the reason that they did all this was so that they could hide this information. I'm sorry, if there's someone else over here?
Yeah, everyone's unmuted, so there may be background noise.
Okay.
But I'm going to stop the recording, but we can go ahead and keep talking.